Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Future of Sports panel. I've been coming to Milken for many years, and the Milken Conference, and I always remember sports being on the third day. Well, here we are, saving the best for last on the first day with the Future of Sports panel, which says a lot about what we think about the sports industry today and where it's going. So we're not going to dive into bios today. We have quite the esteemed panel here today that I'm sure a lot of you know. And a great diverse set of experiences and subjects that we're going to dive into. But I do want to start with Candace Parker. What a legend, and thank you so much for being here today. It's been a big week for you. Mm-hmm. For those of you who missed, it seems like everyone heard the news about you announcing your retirement from your playing days. But I think what was so special about your announcement is you've had an incredible career on the court, but you're now emphasizing this next chapter, right? You said that you are going to start your business across broadcasting, investing, and ownership, and not a businessman, but a businessman. So tell us a little bit about what you're most excited about in this next chapter.
Well, first, thank you all. After 16 years, it was bittersweet, but it was time. And I think just being here and realizing how special a time it is to be in sport. I think that's the biggest thing. You see everybody sitting up here and we've all been impacted by sport, but now it's like I've played 16 years in the game. I want to be on the other side. Like having the perspective as a player to now be able to have the opportunity to maybe be in an ownership group, to own not just a WNBA team, but an NBA team as well. And then on broadcasting, being on that side and seeing the media and the content and how everything kind of comes together. And so I'm grateful for my mentors. I'm grateful for Michael Strahan was kind of my North Star in that he started transitioning before it was time to transition, before the ball, the football, I guess, stopped bouncing. But I think that was kind of my North Star. He's got a little bit of everything. I mean, he's in media, he's investing, all that stuff. And so I started doing that early. And I think now, when it's time to transition, although it's scary, I'm excited about what the next chapter holds.
Well, you are such a role model for all athletes out there, and definitely setting a standard for women's sports and women's athletes as they think about their next chapter. Michelle, I'd love to turn it to you. You're fairly new to the sports industry, but have come in and are now a trailblazer across the industry, and especially in women's sports. What do you love the most about the sports industry?
Yes, this is certainly not good for one's heart. I just came from the semifinal of Champions League, two very tough semifinal games, and I was sitting next to PSG. I own the Olympique Lyonnais women's team, and we played against PSG, so the PSG owners were sitting next to me, and we were all just looking at each other and saying, this can't be good for anyone's heart. It's been an incredible 2 years. I know David Beckham was here earlier today and talked about bringing Leo Messi. 2 years ago, I did not know who Leo Messi was. And so from there to owning not only 3 women's teams, but actually some other investment in other overall men's teams. It's been an incredible ride, and it's absolutely fun. And I think every weekend, I never imagined my life would revolve around keeping track of 3 teams playing every single game, single weekend. And it's a lot of fun, but definitely not for faint-hearted.
And you're just getting started.
I'm just getting started. Yes.
Ryan, thank you for being here. It's a good friendly face on the stage. We've gotten to know each other over numerous stops in the sports and entertainment industry over the years. I think we both sort of take this view that sports is a lot, right? And sports is like entertainment. And the blurring of lines between all these different industries makes it really exciting. You've had stops at BetMGM and SoRare, and now are the president of Yahoo Sports, the second largest media platform in sports. When you think about sort of the different experiences that you've had, and you've been at big companies, smaller startup type of environments, how do you, when you think about going to work every day and what you're trying to build, what motivates you the most in the environment that you're in now?
So the big one that you left out, I was at ESPN for a long time, almost 9 years. Yeah. And in today's job at Yahoo, what motivates me in large part is catching up. We're still very large, about 100 million uniques a month across our properties. That's large by any measure. But we get the chance to also keep pushing and trying to grow. Fantasy is really big. But the common tie to all of those, the motivation across all those is you want to engage sports fans. That's why I think any job in this industry is so, it's not for the faint of heart, but it's not for the faint of heart to be a fan either. And you wake up every day, and my motivation, our motivation, is how do I get 100 million people to spend more time with us? And how do I turn 100 million into 125 million, 150 million? And there's a lot of different ways to do that through content, different voices, new voices, games. Fantasy is obviously for us really large. For many, now betting represents a different engagement mechanism. But that's the motivation. And for all of us, this is what I would be doing, how I'd be spending my time as a fan, and now I just get to do it as a job.
Well, the scale, scope, and reach that you have at Yahoo Sports and that sports has in general, I think is really, really fascinating that everyone's keeping their eye on regardless of the industry that you're in. Masai, I'll turn it over to you for a second. Thank you as well for being here. You have basketball in your ethos, right? And you are the first African general manager in major North American sports. I believe you said in the past that you're very proud of that accomplishment, but it would be a failure of sorts if you were the first and the last. How do you think about the legacy that you're building and encouraging others to follow in your footsteps?
First of all, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Such incredible people here. I've worked with Mark Lazary for a long time and Candace for a very long time too. And I would actually rather not be here and be in the playoffs rather than be here. But I'm happy I have a rebuilding team, and at least we have some upside. But you know, seeing the talent from Africa, the young talent coming, not only in the league, but in front offices, in coaching, I think Golden State for their WNBA team just hired a Ghanaian woman as the president of their new WNBA team. So for me, that's progress. The goal is not to be the first, it's not to be the last, is how you win on the court, you win off the court, and as you do it, you bring people along. And bringing people along means we went with the Raptors from 1 woman to 22 women. You know, that makes me proud. It makes me proud that Ime is the first African head coach in Houston, but more people are doing it now. And coming from the continent, I want to say that the biggest jewel of the continent is the talent of its people. And I think you see it in the league. By the way, I'll say, if I brag about Pascal, I brag about Embiid, and I brag about all these guys, Mark, I still would say that Giannis Antetokounmpo is from Nigeria, okay? And Wembayama's dad is from Congo. So when you see that kind of talent, no, it's real. When you see that kind of talent, you know that that's the strength of the continent. And I'm happy that I've been given the opportunity to be in this position.
Thank you. We're gonna spend a lot of time diving into Africa and the opportunity on the continent. So Mark Lazary needs no introduction. Thank you for being here, Mark. You are no stranger to the sports world, but you recently sold your stake in your NBA team, Milwaukee Bucks, and you've decided to launch a dedicated sports fund. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about that, but I did hear that I think you expressed once that David Stern shared with you that one of the toughest things you'll ever do is sell your stake in an NBA team. Mm-hmm. Any regrets yet?
Do I regret it? If it ends up being worth $5 billion, yeah.
There's a media deal pending right now.
I know. No, look, I think at the time it was the right thing. David had said to me when I bought the team, he goes, you just did the second hardest thing in the world. I was like, whoa, what's first? He goes, selling. And it actually is really, it's hard to sell. I think for me, it was probably the right thing for our family and things to that effect. But I love sports. As Masai said, I'll give you guys a quick little question. Who here knows how many people live in Africa? What do you think the population is? Let's see, yes? Pardon? 1.4 billion. Yeah, it's about 1.5 billion. Do you know what the average age is? 19. So think about like a continent that's going to be obsessed with sports. On this panel here are two people who were born in Africa. Right? I was born in Morocco. So it's, you look at what that continent is doing and what's happening, it's fascinating. It really is, all the changes that are going to happen. So, like, you know, you're talking about engagement and you want to increase engagement. I've got 700, I think, Instagram followers. I'll tweet. What do we, no, post, sorry. I'm going to post. And I'm going to tell all 700 of mine to follow. Yeah, right. I know people think it's 700,000. No, I've only got 700. Right, so you need to do the same thing, right? How many do you have? You have more?
I have a little bit more.
See, it's bullshit. It's just wrong. It's wrong. It is. All right, so now we're going to help everybody out on stage.
Yeah, we
All
will.
right? Okay.
I got you.
All right, good.
All right, let's dive in a little bit, Mark. Tell us about this new chapter, this new sports fund that you were launching. What can you share with us?
Look, I think it's what Masai said. It's what everybody's talking about. Everybody loves sports, right? So you want to be a part of it. I think you are literally in the first, second inning. And there is going to be, you saw 6th Street announce they're going to do it. You're going to have TPG, you'll have Apollo, you have all the different groups. You want to be invested in sports. You want to have an opportunity. I think for us, it's a little bit of what people have said. You know, one of our focuses is women's sports. I think it's massively undervalued. You ended up having Caitlin Clark come in and she played. 18 million plus people saw that. That's more than I've ever watched an NCAA men's basketball game. It's more than watched the World Series. You want to be doing new leagues. We invested in the PGA. You want to be invested in sort of new leagues, existing leagues. You want to be buying interest in teams. We want to be lending money to teams. Like, who here is a Laker fan? Is anybody a Laker fan? All right.
Everybody's reluctantly Laker.
Right. So be a proud Laker fan, right? even though they lost. But if you went and bought the Lakers for $5 billion, you could only borrow $325 million. If you buy it for $10 billion, you can only borrow. As the value of teams goes up, people are going to need capital. I think that's one of the things we're trying to do. So I think there's a real need for capital in sports. You're going to see it, and you're going to have, at least for the short term, pretty large returns.
And in what is becoming a more competitive landscape, what is your sort of right to win, right? And how do you think that you can be successful in that space? And what is the special sauce that you want to?
Oh, God, if I tell you the special sauce, then it's not special. No, but I think our edge is the fact that since you've owned a team, everybody who's doing this, not one person who's doing it has owned a team. So there is a lot of information you get and knowledge that you learn from owning a team, the relationships that you make, sort of the access that you have. And I think in sports, the goal is to win the tie, right? It's never somebody coming in and saying, okay, I'm going to pay you multiples more than the other person. It's really winning a tie. One of my partners in the sports fund is Candace. And you know, one of the reasons we want to do that is because we see opportunities in women's basketball. We see opportunities in women's volleyball. We see opportunities in a lot of different sports, but we have a number of athletes who are helping us. And we think our edge is to try to win the tie and sort of the relationships that we have. But also, you're going to ride a wave, and that you're in the beginning of that wave. And you want to be invested in sports, whether you do it with us or you do it with somebody else. You're going to make quite a bit of money in sports over the next few years.
I think, sports is really unique, where having that hands-on experience that you've had is incredibly valuable. You've built an advisory team of athletes and others, Candace being one of them. I think that's really incredible and going to add more value to you. But Candace, when you think about sitting in that seat, in that role, what do you think your role is? How can you add and contribute?
Well, before this momentum in this day and age right now, I remember having a conversation with Mark, which we met in a celebrity all-star game. I made a fake, he reacted like 10 seconds later, and we bumped heads. And so
It was a good fake.
it was just, he took a little bit longer to react to it. And so that's kind of how we bumped into each other, I should say. And his family that was in attendance to the game thought it was hilarious. And so every year at All-Star, we would always connect. And we always kept in touch. And I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, so I went and saw the Bucks play during the playoffs. And it was an unbelievable environment. And I'm a big relationship, like getting to know someone, what their foundation is. And I asked you, I said, like, we gonna invest in women's sports? Because I truly feel like in order to figure out whether something can work, you have to truly invest in it. And as we're seeing in today, and we talk about Caitlin Clark, the first time the NCAA game was on ABC was last year. So in order to give something a chance to succeed, don't bury it in NFL Sundays, give it a chance. And so now we're seeing NCAA just signed a deal with ESPN for $920 million I mean, listen, women's sports, it was just allowed to use March Madness like after 2020 and the whole weightlifting thing. So I feel like that was my main draw, was that looking at Milwaukee and what Mark was able to do there, and not just basketball. They won a championship. It was amazing.
Small.
It was great. It was great. But also around real estate, also around everything within that community, I think it was super important. And so to be able to be alongside him and to learn, I mean, it was a no-brainer, because I have a goal of not only owning a WNBA team, but also owning an NBA team, because like, why not? And so just being able to be involved in that, learn, be in places and rooms like this, I think that there's value, especially on this side and transitioning.
100%. Keep thinking big and surrounding yourself with good people, for sure. Michelle, I had the privilege last year of judging the Sports Business Journal's Deal of the Year award. And you won for your 2022 investment into the NWSL's Washington Spirit. And one of the factors that went into you winning that award was your backroom savviness to beat out a lot of experienced sports owners through the process to win the deal. Yes. I mean, congratulations. You've really turned that team around, but also really contributed to not just the NWSL, but the entire women's sports landscape internationally. Talk to us a little bit about sort of your coming into the industry, having that opportunity, and deciding to charge ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know where to begin, but so I think that what I got into sort of women's sports by accident. It was not some grand plan or anything like that, but one could argue, at the right place at the right time. So the whole process of acquiring Washington Spirit was, I would say, less than kind of normal, and it was a very challenging process. And it took everything. I never thought my MBA was worth anything, but actually everything I learned in MBA, actually especially finance and hostile takeover, all you name it, I got to use all of it. But I think at the end of the day, it was about valuing what you want to invest in. And 2 years prior to me purchasing the Spirit, Seattle Reign was sold to Olympique Lyonnais for $3 million. A year later, Utah team was sold for $5 million. And a year later, I set the price at $35 million. And everyone thought I was crazy, right? The revenue didn't go up 7 times, attendance didn't go up by 7 times, but I thought that as I got to learn about women's sports and I saw the absolute potential, there was no reason why women's sport, especially women's soccer, should be where it should be, where it was. It's not charity, it should be considered as business, and there is tremendous opportunity. And if you don't value what you think is worth a lot more, who's going to value? Sponsors are not going to value, media companies are not going to value. So I set the price at $35 million. And I can't really tell you, but I don't know whether anyone can tell you why Amazon was worth whatever it was, Google was worth whatever it was. It's sort of a Silicon Valley model. So I paid $35 million. I set the value at $35 million. A year later, NWSL awarded expansion rights for $53 million each. And this year, which is the 5th year, one team just got sold for $120 million. And another team is going for capitalization and so forth. That team could fetch anywhere from 180 to 200 million. So that's about 60, 70 times of what it was 5 years ago. I can absolutely tell you that the revenue didn't go up by 70 times, attendance didn't go up by 70 times. But there was underlying value that was grossly undervalued. And I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg with the investment, that proper investment, not only on the product side. At the end of the day, we're in the entertainment business, right? We're not competing against women's sports, are not just competing against men's sports. We are competing against any form of entertainment. All of us have basically 7 nights a week. And you can go out, have dinner, you can go see a concert, you can go out for a walk, but we are competing for that discretionary time and discretionary dollars. So how do we make our product so compelling that you would come and watch 11, 13 weekends in a row? So our product has to be the best, our fan experience has to be best. So significant investment has to go in. However, on the women's side, we don't have the kind of the media deal that men's sports have, and that's a significant sort of a weakness right now we have in terms of the valuation and the investment opportunities. But I think that therefore some of the scale and the acceleration require actually potentially putting multiple teams together, and that's sort of the multi-club model. So I decided to go down that path, and I guess I'm the first one to put together a multi-team on the women's side. I know on the men's side it's got some very negative and bad connotation for multi-club composition, but on the women's side, I can submit to you that it is a necessity, not a luxury, because we don't have the kind of money to invest per team based upon the revenue and current revenue and media deal values. But if you can pull some teams together, you can actually invest at the scale that you need to invest and accelerate the movement, the development of women's soccer. So it's been a pretty interesting ride, and it's just, as we said, just at the beginning of this incredible movement.
Well, important to have investors who see the future. I mean, most of these women's sports, if not all of them, these teams are losing money.
Yep.
They're losing money and they require investment.
Yes.
So how far out in the future, when you think of it from an investor lens, Mark, Michelle, do you guys sort of think about these deals when you're looking at them and whether to invest?
I think it's, when you look at these teams, it's probably 5+ years. You're going to really say it's 10 years, but it's really 5 years. And the reason for it is you want to be around for the second media deal.
Yeah.
Right? So I think if you look at women's soccer, where their first deal was really small, second deal much larger, third deal will be, I think, multiples of that, right? So you want to be in sports and in leagues that are going to do exceptionally well, right? I'd love, in the panel earlier, imagine what, when Johnny was talking about, I'd love if we had 5 billion people, involved in trying to see what we're doing. Like, we all have a goal of trying to get that fan engagement, but I think it is a process of sort of 5 to 10 years where you're going to capture it and things will catch up and really surpass what you're buying it for. You can't have a women's soccer team be 50 million and a men's soccer team be $1 billion. There's nothing wrong with a women's soccer team being half, but sooner or later things catch up. And you can't have a women's basketball team be 50 million to 60 million and have a men's basketball team be $3.5 or $5 billion. So it's gonna change. It's gonna take time. Like 95% of all sports on TV today are dominated by men. right? It's on. Now, that number is going to go down. Is it going to be 50-50? No. Will it be 80-20? Yeah, that seems reasonable. But if that happens, that means women's sports has gone up 400%. Right? So you've got all these opportunities out there. You want to be in the beginning, and you need to have the luxury of time, and that time's about 5-10 years.
I would say that I'm sort of 2 years into it, and I kind of set myself for 5 years to sort of break even, not at the team level, but at the multi-club level, at the level of investment that I don't think any other team has ever done. So I think probably in 5 years, and I think in the US, NWSL currently is the first year of the 4-year media deal. In the UK, the new code, they're spinning off the women's league. They're going to renegotiate for the media deal starting next year. So it's going to be, I think, pretty telling in terms of how quickly and how big this media deals are going to be in the women's sports and women's football.
Thank you for that. Let me go, Ryan, turn back over to you. So Yahoo Sports, as we said, the second largest media platform when we talk about sports. And we're in a time where eyeballs are everything, right? That's how we're going to monetize all of these properties. When you think about Yahoo Sports, it's actually 30 years old. Not to age all of us here, but I kind of remember the beginning days of Yahoo Sports. When you think about investing into your platform and building it for the future, how are you taking a 30-year-old property and building for the future?
It's what I ask every day. It's actually our North Star is pretty clear, and it does date back very specifically to 30 years ago, which is Yahoo, at its founding 30 years ago, was to show you the best things on the internet. That's what it was. Mm-hmm. Here's these curated links, and let's take you to where you want to be and deliver, hopefully, value that then gets you to return every morning and so forth. That's what we want to do for sports. It's 30 years later. We do that in many different ways. But we are, 2.5 years ago, Apollo bought us and took us private. We were part of Verizon at the time. And we are in investment mode. And to us, that means modernizing the product. And we're doing that heavily across mobile in particular, fantasy in particular. Uplifting the content, and you see today we announced the addition of Nate Tice on NFL, like just great names, great voices on all different platforms, from NFL to baseball to soccer, WNBA as well, and to move with speed. And the reality is we are the best of a big company in that we have real scale. It's a luxury to have the traffic and the usage and the monetization mechanisms we do, but we have the ability with how we're constructed and our culture to move fast, and that's the best of a startup. What's the most appealing part of being young and small? To move fast and keep iterating. And so we have both those things together. The one thing I would say slightly differently to the start is our North Star is not reach, it's time spent, which is something I took away from ESPN, obviously much more TV, where everything's measured in minutes, and that is how you determine how the telecast goes and the shows. That same piece is very valuable on the digital side, and we don't play in the rights business. We're entirely digital, but we care about time spent, and there's two ways to grow that: do a better job on the product and content, or to bring new eyeballs in and have them stick. And so that's what we all wake up and look at every day, and if you grow that, the rest will follow.
And if I heard you right, so it's not just your own content, right? But it's about pulling in content from all the best sports sources out there so that folks can come think of Yahoo Sports as a platform where they can get the perspective that they want to see or the information that they want to see from the best sources out there.
Exactly, and that is core to what Yahoo is and has always been. I hope that we create the best stuff, and I hope that our programming team feels that our owned and created content warrants placement always, but that's not always true, and that will never always be true. Someone else is going to do something great. if you open up, we have a newsletter from Kendall Baker called the Sports AM. It's free email. It's excellent. He joined, and he in your inbox every morning, the 10 best things you should read or watch or learn about sports every day. And it has a huge, approaching 1 million people get that and open that every day. When he first joined, he called and said, ESPN's written this really important piece on UFC. Can I link to it? Don't ever ask that again. Of course. Now, we should be writing as much as we can, but our partners and we have deep partners with NBC. We're launching a big football endeavor with OneFootball, where they will be the editorial predominantly. We will be the traffic and the home and the monetization. But we're very comfortable working with others and acknowledging that our job is to serve you as a sports fan. It's not necessarily to determine that we have to be the creators of all of that.
Quite refreshing. So thank you for that. Masai, you are the founder of Giants of Africa. We talked a little bit about the potential on the continent. I think one stat that always strikes me as amazing is that by 2050, 1 in 4 people in the world will be African. Just let that sink in for a second. That is something we all should be thinking about for 25 years in the future. With Giants of Africa, how are you investing in the continent?
I think what you just said there, I think people don't pay attention to us as much as we should, and Mark said it very well. That median age of 20, the demographic in Africa, I think growing leadership on the continent, the opening of the borders, possible, and however free trade is going to work out on the continent. I think it's really important that we pay attention. The NBA has never invested in a league anywhere else, and the NBA goes and invests in the Basketball Africa League on the continent. The talent is speaking, and I think we really need to pay attention. 20 years ago, when we started Giants of Africa and Basketball Without Borders, you sit in a camp and you see Joel Embiid sit there, and I have pictures, and you see them, see how skinny they are, or Pascal Siakam, and they've just come from their African countries to these camps. And you cannot even imagine, as Joel Embiid has scored, I think he scored 60 points in a game, or did he score 70 points in a game?
Scored 50 in the
50,
playoffs.
yes,
Yeah.
it's incredible to see. But think about also sports and entertainment, and think of Afrobeats, and think of how it's really moving. And in Africa, Accra, Lagos, Johannesburg, Abidjan, Nairobi, no arena. And these guys are selling out here in Madison Square Garden, in Crypto, in Scotiabank. Think about, when we think about building these infrastructures, how it's going to change everything and business on the continent. So if you are thinking of investing, think about that. Think about sports and entertainment districts. LA Live, Scotiabank Arena, and what goes on, what you guys built in Milwaukee around your arena, that's all going to exist in Africa. When you look at business, you look at banking, you look at real estate, you look at technology, everything that you see here in the western part of the world is going to exist in Africa at some point. Why don't you want it to be you? Urbanization, people, demographics, talent. I think it's time we pay really big attention, because it's no more charity. It's no more taking pictures with flies. Yeah, safaris are great, and we love them. We have the best in Africa. Yeah, but there is business. Yeah, there is business in Africa, and we have to pay attention to that. So when I see the NBA and the opportunity I've been given by everybody here, I look at the continent and I look at these phones. My son is 8. He learned to step back, a step back jumper on his phone. He didn't learn it from like playing. He watched his phone. Think about the 1 point, how many billion people we are saying, and the youth and the age. They are all watching business, everything on their phones. And this is how it's going to move. Yeah, so we have to think about that.
I think everyone investing in sports in Africa should look at it as this opportunity where because it's so mobile, there's an opportunity to leapfrog, you know, in terms of the more established leagues here with respect to, you know, eyeballs, data, engagement, and I think that's really exciting.
Yes. Can I make one more point? 2016, I brought President Kagame to the All-Star, and he looked at the arena with all the performances, Kobe Bryant, All-Star, dunk contest, Drake, everybody in there. And he called me. I thought he was sick for a minute. He called me, he was in a suite, and he says, I asked him, Excellency, is everything okay? And he says, yes. How much does it take to build this? He built an arena, built the stadium. We're now developing that entertainment district. And that whole sports city is going to open next summer. And I'm inviting all of you to come and see it because it's an incredible template that's going to grow on the continent. And that's where I say things are going to change because leadership is changing and people are beginning to see and follow what he's doing.
Yeah. We have just a couple minutes left and so much more to cover, but I've got to at least touch on, Mark, emerging sports, right? You've recently made investments in Tomorrow Golf, Sail GP. If anyone has not seen the recent, there was a clip that went around about the US boat that capsized in the recent race. Find it, watch it. I mean, those athletes are amazing. And men and women both compete in this league, which is really unique. And I think the average viewership is beating NBA games now. Is that?
Yeah, it's, so when they started, they had 100,000 viewers. Today, they just had a race in Abu Dhabi. Our team was the one that capsized. Obviously, I told them not to if they weren't paying attention. Because it is about leadership.
I thought you were influenced.
I mean, like when you know, Masai won't say this, but when Masai said, okay, this year we're going to win the championship, and everybody listened to him. Next year, nobody was listening. So that's what ends up happening. So you try to do it from the top, but most of the time, everybody sort of says, yeah, whatever. So I told them not to capsize. But guess how many viewers you had? You had 2 million viewers. Average NBA game is 1.5 million. You have more people watching sailing than you did watching an average NBA game. Why? Because it's different. It's new. And the part you've got to all understand is you have 350 million Americans in this country. 1.5 million are watching an NBA game. A certain amount are watching, do you know what average hockey is? 500,000. Right? Baseball is 1 million. Somehow sailing caught the attention of 2 million Americans. So you want to be in these leagues, you want to be in things that are going to grow, and you actually have an opportunity to do it once you find out what the ratings are, right? So that's why you want to be in sports, because if you can be there in the beginning, I think you were there in the beginning in women's soccer, you were there. Mm-hmm. And think about it, if you were an investor in Angel City in the beginning, today it's worth at least 100 times. Right, and that's in 4 years?
Yeah.
All right, so I know everybody said they bought NVIDIA, but everybody's always bought a stock that went up a lot. Trust me, you want to be in sports, you're going to make a tremendous amount of money.
Well, I wish we had more time. Thank you all so much. If you're going to invest in sports, make sure you find one of these experienced panelists to help you navigate it all. But thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.